Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent and increasingly LBC presenter, of course, is on the line now. I mean, how many times have I said to you over the last 2-3 electoral cycles, how the hell can it be so close?
No, absolutely. I thought you were going to say, James, that you were having a haunting feeling that this was going to be 2016 all over again.
No,
because,
not
of course,
yet.
that is conditioning. I think the thinking of so many of us who lived through that night in 2016 when we went into the evening all thinking Hillary Clinton had it in the bag. And then within hours, all of that just evaporated in front of our eyes and Donald Trump won that election. It is astonishing and completely confounding to Democrats that this election is close. They think she should be 10 to 15 points ahead of Trump and that Kamala Harris should not even be having to sweat this. But instead, last night, Kamala Harris's campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, told reporters, we may not know the results of this election for several days. They think they're going to get nearly complete results from Georgia, North Carolina and Michigan by the end of tonight. And then tomorrow, additional results from Pennsylvania, Arizona and Nevada. But this thing, they appear to think, I mean, she's described it as a margin of error election, is so close that they are certainly not exuding public confidence about getting a winner tonight. Now, you know, that is in and of itself astonishing, but it demonstrates that the polls that have told us this is deadlocked may well prove to be correct. I mean, there are possibilities, of course, that by midnight, President Kamala Harris is, Vice President Kamala Harris is being described as the president-elect, and the networks are projecting, a landslide win for her. But there's very little evidence to support that, at least in the polling.
What is the likelihood of Kamala Harris winning or appearing to be about to win and Donald Trump doing what he did last time?
Well, I think...
How big a conversation is that in America?
Yeah, I know it is a big conversation. Look, I think there is a real possibility that Donald Trump declares victory even before there is any indication that he's won it, because you're going to see the first results that are going to come in are largely going to favor Donald Trump. And if you remember what happened in 2020, he came out and said, I'm ahead and I'm winning this and I'm ready. And then, of course, argued that the numbers had been rigged because his advantage in those early counts disappeared in front of his eyes. And when the big cities started reporting their results, Joe Biden came through and won the election. And that was kind of the original sin, right? That was at the heart of his argument, completely false argument, that the election in 2020 was rigged. So there is tremendous anxiety that we're going to see something very similar, that he's going to tell his supporters early in the night, before she gets a chance to appear or decides to appear, that he thinks he's won it and it's in the bag. And then things might turn around again and we'll be in a very, very similar position. The efforts that they are making to challenge ballots, the Republicans, are unprecedented. I've got friends that say they have voted in American elections for decades, have never had the signature on their mail-in ballots questioned before, and have had to provide additional evidence to support the fact that their signature really is their signature. In Arizona, the election officials at a press conference yesterday said they're expecting 500,000 early ballots to be dropped off today. All of those signatures will now need to be verified before the ballots can be counted. There will be Republican election observers there that can challenge the signatures. They could challenge every single one of those 500,000 signatures. The state then has 5 days after the election to sort out any issues with those ballots. Biden won in Arizona by 10,500 votes in 2020. So you've only got to try and invalidate 10,500 ballots in Arizona, or at least raise questions about them to delay the outcome of the result there. And the entire country may be dealing with this for days and days to come.
So the best case scenario is in a sense, I don't know if I can say this out loud. I mean, a clear victory for either candidate would at least, because if Trump wins, democracy is in play and it's visible. But if he loses and pretends that he's won, then all bets are off.
Yeah, I mean, I have thought for weeks that the only outcome that doesn't result in potential crisis here is a landslide for one candidate or the other. I mean, if it gets to the point of a massive landslide for Kamala Harris...
Such a mad conversation, isn't it?
It is. It's completely mad, right? If she wins all 7 battleground states, and it's absolutely clear that it's over, because he's no longer in power, he's a former president, he certainly won't be able to use the bully pulpit of the White House to try and change a result of that scale.
Yes.
Equally, the Democrats have a greater propensity to accept the outcome of the election. I think we absolutely know that. But if it's razor thin for him, the Democrats are lawyered to the hilt as well, and you may see legal efforts by them to try and undo some of the results in key places.
I read that $10 billion had been spent.
$10 billion.
$10 billion.
Actually, it's in excess of $10 billion. I think it's closer to 11.
Make it make sense, Simon Marks.
Well, you can't. I mean, and let's also be clear, James, $10.5 billion on the least edifying election campaign this country has ever seen. An election campaign in which last week, as they debated the word garbage, the two parties were essentially arguing over which of them has less disdain for the American public. There's been no focus on policy, real focus on policy here. There's been sizzle, there's been argument, there's been hand-to-hand street fighting, and it's all cost $10.5 billion spent on campaigns, travel arrangements, renting arenas, and of course massive amounts of not only television and radio advertising now, but now targeted digital ads. And by the way, even this morning, they're both still asking for more money.
And the earliest conceivable time at which a clear result could be with us? So don't laugh, this is important.
Well, in my ideal and selfish world, I have this idea that by the time Nick Ferrari comes on air at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, because he's starting early, I think that's the earliest possible moment a declaration of the winner is vaguely conceivable. Beyond that, it's all going to depend on how close this thing really is. Is it as close as the opinion polls suggest, or is there actually movement to Kamala Harris fueled by the gender gap, by the support of women and other constituencies that she's managed to bring to the party? Is that going actually to reveal less proximity between these two candidates than we all think might exist because of the polling?
Extraordinary, and as ever, very clearly articulated by Simon Marks. Are you working through the night, or are you joining us at 5?
Up
What's
for the
plan?
rest of my life.
It's like Nosferatu, he never sleeps. Simon Marks, thank you very much. Live from Washington.